Welcome, fellow travelers. I'm Shae of the Grey Sentinels, and I'm joining Chibi and Virtek here at the Golden Feather. Come on in, grab a seat, and let's share tales of adventure. So let's start with the technical side. I think that's safer for now.
All right, sounds good. So there's a few things that the community has been a little bit worried about lately, and that makes sense knowing that Ashes of Creations Alpha 2 is on its way. One such thing is a 1660 Ti enough for smooth gameplay? And Virtek, I believe you had a regular 1660 during Alpha 1, and I had a regular, I believe, 1080.
Yeah.
How was your gameplay with your regular 1660?
I'm gonna go out on a limb here, and I think it's a pretty sturdy limb. I don't think I'm gonna fall on my face, but just based on how the game was running in the Alpha 1, by the time everything's all said and done with all the upgrades they've done and things they're adding to the game still and whatnot, I don't think a 1660 Ti is going to be enough to do it smooth unless you go with like the bargain basement quality graphics, like all the way down.
And for those who don't know, because a lot of our viewers were not here during Alpha 1, how smooth was Alpha 1 with your 1660?
Not very smooth. And I had it at the lowest setting, but they also didn't have a lot of granularity and control, and I believe for the most part it was just feeding out like whatever it could. But I think,
did you take part? Sorry,
I think I was getting like 20 frames a second or something like that.
Oh dang.
Okay.
I didn't get a chance to take part. It's actually interesting because part of the discussion, which I think you'll dive into in a moment, is some of the examples they gave about what works on some of the dev machines, and the dev that described exactly what I have. A 2070 1440 monitor. So I'm feeling okay. I like that they mentioned specifically what I've got. I was already thinking about upgrading my my computer either for Alpha 2 or for launch, but knowing that I would at least kind of get by with a 60 FPS is a good feeling.
Right. Yeah. I agree with that too, because I had a 1080, and that's actually in the rig that we are going to be giving away. And I'm kind of hoping a 1080 will still skirt by. I know it's not a TI or anything, but I hope that it will still be decent enough to handle that. But yes, one of the things that was brought up was the in this forum, they lay out the different rigs that they have in Office. And my point was that, when you're developing a game, that's a very different draw on your resources than when you're playing it. Because usually you're like dealing with all the art and all the unoptimized stuff on the back end. So you need a beefier computer to handle that. So I'm hoping a 1080 will be good. But fun fact, I actually asked this question if they could update it for the forum post, but unfortunately Wagner's response does not give me hope for that. At the very bottom he says, some very helpful answers here. We'll have updated minimum spec requirements as we get closer to Alpha 2's launch in Q3. And I would say, Intrepid, if you're listening, and I bet our guests would agree with us here, please drop it sooner rather than later, especially when it's tax time. And there are people who are probably needing to save up money and or plan for a better rig or building a better rig, which takes time. As MF says, some of the cards are dropping in value, so people might be able to get their hands on some better cards for themselves. But I think having that sooner rather than later is very helpful for people to make sure that they have the time necessary to get prepped, and that or if they're not sure if they're ready to upgrade yet, if they can hold on for a little longer before needing to upgrade.
Here's one of the silver linings, though, I think, about people that are using, maybe some older cards, hanging on to, their cherished card, is that, let's say they go into Alpha 2, that's actually pretty valuable feedback maybe for the devs, saying, hey, I've got a card that, is 6, 7, 8 years old at this point. I'm trying to run it on, high settings, and here's kind of the result I'm getting. I think that information could still actually be useful as well. They're definitely going to want to test with a variety of cards, make sure there's no weird issues that crop up. So if you're holding out, if you're going to be waiting to build, maybe closer to launch as opposed to Alpha 2, just know you're probably still helping the process by doing so. So it's an honorable cause if you do decide to hold on for now.
Yeah, definitely. But for the people that have 1660s and they're like, this worked in Alpha 1, will it work in Alpha 2? Very valid question.
Yeah. And honestly, I looked up just now during some old messages I sent during that Alpha 1 period. It was actually the old card that I had that was getting like 20 frames per second. I actually got up to, I think, 35 with the 1660, but it was literally just the most basic 1660. I picked it up because it cost $250 at an electronics store. So it wasn't really like a great example of a 1660 even, I'm sure. But it was enough that it got me a much better experience than my old card. And it wasn't quite as pretty as yours. So it was in the middle there.
And again, mine was just a regular 1080, not even a Ti, which is what Steven had at the time, 1080 Ti. So I'm hoping it runs it still just fine, but I'm hoping you don't have to have the 20 series to go better. Do you remember the CPU and RAM on the 1660 is what Nair wants to know. Especially the people who will soldier through this game.
Yeah,
through this game? Sorry, go ahead.
The CPU I had was from the 4000 series. It was a 4790. It was actually one that stayed alive for a really long time. It was actually a really good CPU there for a long time. And I think I had 16 gig of RAM.
Which we now have much better PC comparatively.
Yeah, I eventually upgraded it to 32, but I forget if that was before or after Alpha 1. I completely forget what I had during that Alpha 1 period.
Yeah, but now Virtek won't even need to worry about any game coming out.
Yeah, now I'm good.
All right, so, okay, I'm not sure what kind of monitors you have, but there are a few people who are worried about OLED monitors when it comes to the UI elements. Especially for parts of the UI elements that'll be on the screen for long periods of time without really moving, like your character nameplate and things like that. How do you feel about that? Is that something that you're worried about? Is that something that maybe should be a concern?
For myself, I don't happen to have an OLED screen. I think that would be nice for getting those really, dark, blacks on the screen. But it's interesting because when people talk about the potential burn-in for OLED screens, I did a little bit of research before this to see if this was a prevalent problem. It didn't seem super frequent, but I would imagine that if it was like a common issue that, it'd be more frequently talked about. Wouldn't it be difficult to play most games though? Because don't most games have some sort of static UI to them, right?
I would say that, yeah, probably.
Yeah.
Oh, nice. Gandalf.
One thing I would like to see though, I think I've seen it with a lot of games where people will try and do like a HUD-less challenge. They'll just kind of play it without like anything on screen, right? So I guess anyone with an OLED monitor, they could just kind of have that self-imposed challenge with as little info as possible.
I would die so quickly.
I'm sure that's super immersive though.
Exactly. Right? Hey, immersive. You can get really good screenshots very easily. So that's my hope is, I think back to New World, which just had a really beautiful skybox and sunrises and sunsets. So hopefully you can hide your HUD, if not for, the potential OLED concern, just for enjoying the beauty of Unreal Engine 5.
Yeah. Chaffee, to answer your question, I actually believe my AOC monitors, my Aegon monitors are OLED because they were having that burn-in problem. But it's because I will have things up statically for hours at a time, especially when it's podcasting and everything. So sometimes it would happen that it would burn into the screen a little bit. You can see like a ghost of the element on the screen, even with other things below it, especially with white below it. Also, welcome in, Raka.
I think the solution, I think, which is totally real advice, is to just make Ashes the only game you play ever again. Because then if you get some burn-in for Ashes, then it's fine. You just have to never close the game.
There you go. See? Tactics.
Yeah.
Now,
MF says I can turn my brightness to 0 and be good.
Yeah, just play with the screen off. There you go.
Go for that extra challenge mode.
That actually sounds kind of fun.
One thing you could also do is check out, say, I don't know, the MSI AI monitor if you wanted to. That one does some fun things. It actually it is smart and recognizes what's going on the monitor. Has its own little AI chip and engine and model and whatnot inside the monitor. But one of the things it does is it actually dims the monitor diodes specifically where it recognizes that there are UI or logo elements on the screen for a long time. It'll dim specifically those.
Never heard of that, actually. Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's specifically to prevent the burn-in effect. And it'll do that if you're using it as a TV. It'll pick up logos from like news programs and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Is there a type of monitor I can get that will very intentionally burn in within like 10 minutes? just start crafting something and just have like the crafting icons on my screen at all times.
If you're really handy with a soldering iron,
okay, I'm taking notes.
Yeah, Cash for some wood burning lessons, and he can guide you through on etching into the monitor, and it'll just be there. You go.
It'll be there forever in monochrome.
That's very sweet. Thank you.
Welcome in, Vandar. Vandar says, "Don't change character." Ash's nurse says, "I think OLED monitors also do small tricks like moving static things 1 pixel or so it's imperceptible, but it still helps to prevent it." And I think that's a really good point as well. I didn't think about that.